Hello there, welcome back to another interesting video. Today's video is from Explained Wisdom. It's titled Why Poland is Quietly Becoming Europe's Next Superpower. I'm actually not surprised because why Poland? I'm not surprised because Poland has been excelling recent times. The economy has been booming and they've been doing so well by themselves. So I'm really not surprised, but we're going to be watching this video together. I'm dropping my thought during the course of this video and after this video. My name is Oge. If it's your first time here, hello. Do well to click on the red subscribe button if you haven't. Like this video if you enjoyed it and turn on your post notification bell. Okay, drop a comment on what you think about this video. Let's dive straight into the video.
This is the classic stereotype of Poland, a grey, poor, post-communist country with nothing to offer but cheap, unqualified labor. But this stereotype is no longer true, and Poland of today looks more like this. In the past 30 years, Poland went through an incredible transformation, growing more than any other economy in Europe, and faster than Asian tigers like Singapore, South Korea, or Taiwan. Today, Poland is emerging as a major technological hub. The Polish economy might overtake the UK by 2030, and after years of suffering from a massive brain drain, highly skilled Poles are now coming back home. And it goes way beyond the economy, as Poland is building one of the most powerful militaries in Europe, and quickly becoming one of the most influential European countries. As all of these changes continue to pick up pace, it's getting impossible to ignore Poland's growing importance. But there is still one thing that could destroy the entire Polish miracle. A threat not from the outside, but from within. So how did Poland manage to become Europe's biggest success story? Why is it doing so much better than everyone else? And what is the challenge threatening to end everything that it has achieved? This is the rise of Poland. But first, to understand why Poland's transformation is such a big deal, we need to understand where it started from. In the 20th century, after becoming the first country to be invaded by Nazi Germany and losing 20% of its population in World War II, Poland became part of the Eastern Bloc, as one of the Soviet-controlled satellite states. Like in the rest of the Eastern Bloc, the 40 years of communism were times of deep economic isolation, stagnation, and overall hopelessness. Poland had to import the Soviet system of centrally planned economy, where state owned almost everything. Private businesses were mostly non-existent, and since they were basically a Soviet colony, the Polish economy was subservient to interests of the Soviet Union, and forced to make, buy, and sell whatever Moscow wanted it to, whether it made economic sense or not. As a result, the centrally planned economy was deeply dysfunctional and mismanaged, crippled by constant shortages of basic goods and lack of resources. When the communist regimes of Eastern Europe finally fell in 1989 and Poland became free and independent, it emerged from behind the Iron Curtain as one of the poorest countries in Europe, with highly dysfunctional infrastructure and public services, and with basically no experience with capitalism and participating in a global economy. The average salary was 10 times lower than in Germany, and the country was struggling with hyperinflation. In other words, it wasn't a country you would bet on to become a major success. But skip 30 years ahead into the future, and that's exactly what happened. So, how did Poland do it? From 1992, Poland managed to grow consecutively for almost 3 decades, achieving the longest period of growth in modern European history. Now, not many countries are able to do that, and the reason is that usually when they find a successful strategy, they tend to stick to it long after it stops working. But Poland, so far, managed to find a different growth strategy for each of the 3 decades, which allowed it to grow so fast for so long. Starting in the early 1990s, its main challenge, like in every other post-communist country, was how to transition from a centralized, state-owned economy to a capitalist one. In most countries, these transitional reforms were in one way or another quite problematic. Either they took too long or they became pretty corrupt, and much of the state wealth was transferred into hands of a few wealthy oligarchs who got rich because of their political connections. Poland, on the other hand, managed this transition arguably better than others. others. It transitioned to capitalism quickly, but privatized most of the state-owned companies slowly, and a few years later than most of its neighbors, after the chaos calmed down, and after it became a little bit harder to steal everything. Thanks to that, it became pretty much the only post-communist country without an economy dominated by oligarchs, and without an economic crash in the 1990s. But despite the good start in the early 2000s, this wasn't enough anymore in order to grow, and so the next phase was about globalization. In 2004, Poland joined the European Union and the open European market with a free movement of goods and services. Without any barriers between Poland and the rest of Europe, it made sense for Western European companies to move their manufacturing over to Poland, where they had a large and a very cheap pool of workers at their disposal. And while these companies kept most of the profit, Poland got enough out of it to keep growing at a pretty fast pace. And joining the EU brought another major benefit, since one of its key principles is redistribution of money from wealthier member states to the less developed ones, in order to balance the wealth disparity across the Union. After joining, the Eastern European states started to receive a lot of money, and Poland managed to use them to build and improve everything from roads to universities. And again, in a lot more efficient way than in many other Eastern European countries. But that can still only take you as far, and many countries following a similar trajectory eventually fall into the so-called middle-income trap. If your economy is based on providing cheap labor for foreign companies, you can only grow to a certain level. And if you can't offer anything else apart from that, and you don't have any major companies of your own, you're stuck. But so far, Poland seems to be avoiding that. 15 years ago, foreign companies were coming in to hire low-skilled and low-paid workers for menial labor. But today, they're coming because Poland has one of the largest pools of engineering talent in Europe. And instead of warehouses and
I mean, if I was a Pole, if I was Polish, right? I don't know which is right. Is it Polish or Pole? If I was Polish or if I was Pole. I don't know which is right. Please correct me. Let me know in the comment section, okay? So I can be saying the right thing. I will be so proud of my country. The fact that we lost everything at some point and we're able to rise to this point where we are competing with other leading countries, and you know other countries are looking at us like these guys are going to be coming as one of the best very soon. We see that there's employment here. There's a lot of good things happening here. I mean, based on the economy. I mean, so many things to be proud of, honestly. Their market is booming. Now they're going into tech. I mean, this is such a testimony. Nobody would ever think that Poland will get to where it is today because of what they have suffered in the past. And I feel like this is actually really good, like really good. I won't be surprised if Poland in the next 4, 5, 10, 15 years, Poland is coming as one of the leading countries based on their economy and their government and these things. I mean, this is really good to hear and to know. Let me know if there are more things we need to know in the comment section, okay? Let's continue.
Basic factories, companies like Google are opening research and development hubs. Now, that said, Poland is still relatively poor, at least compared with most of Western Europe. But the growth so far has been impressive and unusually inclusive. Average wages in the country massively increased, while inequality
I mean, Poland is relatively poor, but they are growing. I mean, in no time, they are going to catch up. So that's what happens with growth. At some point, you might be very down, but since there's been a lot of significant changes. So we know and we are very positive and we know that very soon, like very, very soon, they are going to get there. Because the employment rate is so high and they are really hardworking people, at least from what we can see, right?
Average wages in the country massively increased, while inequality remained low. And so it's not a growth that would only exist on paper, or only help select few, but it actually trickled down to the rest of the society. And there's one more area outside of economic growth where Poland has been getting a lot of attention lately, and that's its unprecedented military buildup. Historically, Poland has some good reasons to be a little paranoid. Stuck between Germany and Russia, it has been invaded, partitioned, colonized, and stripped of its independence time.
I mean, we know that these guys can get attacked anytime, so they are investing so much in their military, which I think is wise and is a good move, right? So they are investing so much in their military, and yeah,
time and time again. And even though today it's in NATO, this historical memory is still there. And while most European countries were taking their peace dividends, Poland has kept military funding at one of the highest levels in NATO. And after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it went into an overdrive. It announced that in just a few years, it will increase its military spending to 5% of its GDP, higher than any other NATO member, double the size of its armed forces to 300,000. And buy thousands of tanks, fighter jets, and other military equipment. And before the end of the decade, Poland plans to have the most powerful ground forces in Europe, in what would be one of the most ambitious military buildups in modern European history. Now, that being said, what Poland
one thing I love is they are not just growing their market, they are not just growing their economy, they are growing in every aspect, like in every aspect. I love it for them. I really love it for them.
Poland has achieved so far is impressive, and what it plans to achieve even more so. But it's yet to be seen if all that will actually happen. Despite its successes, there are some significant risks that could kill the entire Polish miracle, and not everyone is so bullish on Poland's future. For a long time, demography has been considered the #1 threat, as around 500,000 people have left the country in the last 30 years. But now it looks like Poland managed to reverse this trend. In recent years, it has seen a reverse brain drain, as Poles and people with Polish heritage living abroad have started coming back to the country. And since the country took in over 1.5 million Ukrainian refugees, the demographic trends are looking much better. And so there are really two major risks. First, while the growth has been impressive, Poland has not actually avoided the middle-income trap completely. So far, it's still massively reliant on foreign investments, and although tech centers are being opened in Warsaw, they are set up by foreign companies rather than by Polish ones. And while that brings jobs and growth, once again, there is a limit to how high you can grow, since most of the profits will always end up leaving the country in the end. In order to break into the big leagues, you need your own domestic giants in sectors with high added value, and Poland doesn't have that, or at least not yet. But the far bigger risk is of a completely different nature, and it concerns a part of the Polish story that we haven't touched on yet. The thing is that Poland is a deeply divided country, so much that we can almost talk about two different Polands. One liberal and progressive, and the other deeply conservative and religious. Like in the US, the two Polands are finding it increasingly difficult to coexist together, and surveys show that both sides are highly suspicious of each other, intolerant to opposing views, and increasingly refusing to compromise. And for years, the current conservative government has been criticized by the liberal opposition for supposedly bending the rules in order to stay in power, and it has had a growing beef with the European Union that's threatening to cut Poland off from EU funds as a punishment for not upholding the rule of law. And the thing is that whatever side you cheer for, the end result is bad for both, and for Poland in general. The country needs both parts of the population to coexist and work together, and it needs the EU if it wants to be truly successful. And if it doesn't manage to do that, the Polish miracle will be over soon, before it has really started.
I mean, if we want to actually have that great Poland, they need to actually work together. They need to actually come together. Nothing will actually make sense if they are divided. And I mean, they're not even hiding it there. Like, they are very particular and very loud about being divided, which I think is not a good sign. You know, their allies could penetrate through that. Once they realize that they are not, united, they could penetrate through that. Well, I hope and I know that they will always pull through. It's Poland, they will always pull through. Let's know what you think about all these points that was mentioned in this video. Let's know if you have additional things to mention. Please let us know in the comment section. We are all learning, especially me. I'm African. I'm really learning a lot about Poland, and I'm super excited to be seeing this with you guys. So please educate me in the comment section. Let's know what you think about this video. Do not forget to like, share, subscribe, drop a comment on what you think about this video. Turn on your post notification bell, and I'll see you in my next episode. Bye.